Well, thanks so much for tuning in to this conversation. What me and Sajeet are trying to do is try and figure out this whole mania over the next 7 days about IPOs. And all of you must be wondering, how is it that you have enough money to subscribe to all of them if all of them are looking good to you? And by the way, a shameless plug, the all you need to know copies and the IPO does will have the conversations and the details of each of these IPOs. So you can log on to BloombergQuint.com and try and read about that. But Sajeet, we've seen this in the past, but it's just that in a COVID impacted year, when you suddenly have a month of March and a flurry of IPOs coming in 7-8 days, it does make your eyebrows raise.
Yeah, it is, and that's what I think. I think one of the reports spoke about the regulator also warning about bunching of all the IPOs together. But for companies and promoters who are trying to come with this IPO, they wanted to finish it up before the financial year. So if you look at the pipeline, we have around 6 odd IPOs coming in next week, Niraj, and many of them from interesting sectors.
With Anupam having started.
Yes. And then you have Craftsman Automation, Lakshmi Organics, Kalyan Jewelers, the Pan-India jeweler who is coming out in IPO, Nazara Technologies. That's going to be an interesting one, which is coming in, which on 17th, and Suryodaya Small Finance Bank. That's one which is coming out on 17th. So it is a packed week coming up for us in terms of IPOs. And the bigger question is that whether there will be enough retail appetite for that. More than appetite, actually, whether there is enough cash in the bank for many of the retailers.
Yeah, that too, more important thing, right? A lot of people I hear also will have to make their advance tax payments in the month of March simply because the dates were allowed to be pushed and they have not done it. But Sajeet, I mean, any reasons why this has happened? Is this because of the audited and unaudited accounts, or why is it that there's bunching up?
There are a couple of reasons to it. One is that your audited results can come by the end of June, right? When typically April, May, there's a 60-day period which is given, and there will be some relaxations also given on that by the regulator for audited numbers. But more than that, it is a rush to close the IPOs before the financial year, which is March 31st. Not only complete the process, but also the listing also, so that you can. The entire amount can be factored in the current balance sheet as compared to next financial year's balance sheet. For bankers, it would be bonuses which would be factored in this financial year as compared to next financial year, which would be there. But there is also a small fear which is there because of the rising COVID cases, and many states like Maharashtra are looking up for some kind of lockdown measures or precautionary measures. We heard Nagpur has gone for a 1-week lockdown now. There's a strong warning coming from the Chief Minister about Mumbai going for a lockdown if measures are not taking place. So there could be that they don't want to get sucked up into this entire lockdown period where things come to a standstill, or there is uncertainty which is coming into the system, and so they want to finish off the IPO in the next coming week, and that also allows them to complete the entire process by the end of the financial for them.
Yeah. Speaking of bonuses, it'll be interesting to see what happens to those bankers. But yeah, the other interesting bit, Sajeet, was I saw some of the IPO conversations that you did as well, the 2 or 3 that I've done. I mean, optically, the standout part for me, aside of the fact that some of these are niche businesses like Nazara or specialty chemicals, because each of them looks so separate than the other company, is the valuation bit. And some of the valuations or the numbers perplex me. I mean, I can understand a company which has got very high growth potential coming at maybe 25, 30, 35 times, a stretch because the listed peers are not so. But and Nazara is a different kettle of fish. But I think the one that you spoke to, and maybe you can speak more about Kalyan Jewelers or Anupam Rasayan, which launched Friday, and the P multiple annualized is upwards of 90 times. Even if you discount that maybe the growth numbers have been underestimated a little bit, let's say it's at 80 times instead of 95 times, right? That's a 15.
That's right, yeah.
% discount, 15 points discount at 80 times, let's assume. And it's just so expensive the way some of these IPOs are coming about. And that to me is the telling factor, right? That there is an appetite for these companies even then.
Actually, it's not that appetite for fundamentals which is happening here. It's the listing day gain which is there. In the last 1 year, we've seen 90 lakh or nearly a crore of new investors coming into the market in form of DMAT and others, and that is something which is a very telling thing which is here. And so, it's a quick gain
Yeah,
that which is inviting people into the market there.
Yeah, but Sajeet, yeah, I'm thinking that, I mean, we've looked at IPOs for the last 17, 18 years that we worked together, right? I mean, in the past, if the IPO was exorbitantly priced at some point of time, it didn't do well. Out here, it seems to be a presumption that no matter what the valuation is, there will not necessarily be future gains, but there will be listing gains also, which is quite amazing.
And the best part is that most of them are looking at financials for FY20. Means we are on the verge of finishing FY21, and when you ask the question of valuation, they talk about FY20 as the valuation because that's the base year for them. FY21 is not even considered, and if you look at FY21 as the year, then for any company to come and talk about valuation, it's not going to be easy, especially. It's going to be a very tough one for them. It's actually the liquidity which is pushing people to go for listing gains and then fundamentals, because these companies may end up as red marks for many of the bankers, because over a period of time they have to disclose how these IPOs have performed over a 1 year period. And once that performance starts coming in based on fundamentals, maybe not now, maybe a quarter, 2 quarter down the line, you will have to answer those questions why you priced the IPOs there. I can see like I've done a couple of them where like Kalyan, they were planning for 1700, 1800 crore IPO. Now they have scaled it down to 1175 crore IPO, but and that too a company is a loss-making company for the 9-month period, and I assume that because operations are still curtailed, they may make loss in Q4 also, so they end up the year with a loss. But still, it's going to be a huge P multiple for that, because they are looking at FY20 earnings to be the base value, and FY22 is an expectation which you have to take a bet on.
Yeah, you have to. So very quickly, I mean, Sajeet spoke about Kalyan. The other two, there is Anupam Rasayan. I kind of briefly spoke about. Pretty good company, very niche products, etc., but priced exorbitantly. However, they are into a segment which is seeing a lot of demand, and therefore you may very well see the company in a high growth phase going ahead. The other one in the specialty chemical space, and quickly run you through that, is Lakshmi Organic, which seems to be a lot more reasonably priced than Anupam Rasayan. And again, like I said, two specialty chemical companies, difficult to compare them. But Sajeet, the interesting bit was that with regards to Lakshmi Organics, FY20 or FY19, very flat numbers. They mentioned that they had a flood and therefore they had to keep their facility shut for nearly 45 days. And therefore you give that the benefit of doubt. But FY21, they have done remarkably well on the revenue front in the first half. And therefore you can at least see growth. And then if you kind of extrapolate that to FY22 and FY23, because there's a new capacity coming on stream, etc., you would probably believe that the valuations are a lot more reasonable. So at least in Lakshmi Organic, that is that leeway. And lastly, before you get into maybe some other companies, the highlight, Sajeet, could well be Nazara, small company,
a gaming company,
Rakesh Jhunjhunwala's name attached, and it's
not Rakesh Jhunjhunwala company. He was one of the first investors in the company.
Yeah, I'm just saying the name attached because he's got a large stake, but the reason why it seemed interesting and the IPO, the conversation was so cool, is because it's in a space which I think a lot of people would fail to understand. Why is it that the PE investors would be giving them the money that they would? Because the numbers may not really look that great at the first sight, but then you look at the past and you try and think about what they could do in the future, and then you burnish it with the management commentary, maybe it looks different. So
how will you value that company, Niraj?
So the brokerage notes, I was reading an Elara note, and a PE is probably not the right metric any which ways, because actually if you look at their EBITDA numbers, there was an EBITDA loss I think in FY20. The return ratios etc. all came off and went into the negative too, if I'm not wrong, or came to barely break even from actually having ratios close to 15-17% ROCE. So they've come off a bit. If you use EV by sales maybe as a metric, I don't know if that would work. Globally, gaming companies, and I think Roblox got listed at some massive multiples. But Sajeet, the interesting bit, and then I would want you to speak about some of the others as well. But just one interesting thought that I gleaned from the conversation with Nazara was that they said that what they're doing is they're building in capabilities with with building an ecosystem wherein a lot of these gaming developers come on board with Nazara, and therefore their management bandwidth is capable enough to battle it out over the next few years as global companies come into the Indian landscape, because India seems to be that last frontier which everybody wants to come in and conquer in order to get growth because of the population. So
no, I agree because I've seen kids getting into Roblox.
you would know that.
There is a and they have a huge ecosystem not only of gaming but also of videos where developers are talking about how they're going about developing stuff, and there's huge inventory of videos which children are watching and listening to it.
Wow.
So I don't know whether Nazara reaches that level or not, but it is an interesting company to be watched out for. Now, I'm not certain about the fundamentals part of it, which you certainly said, they had negative ratios or close to flat ratios for the last year or so. But it came off. But again, you are taking a bet on FY20's valuation and then taking a flight above, and just because you have and the best part is that in many of the cases, because despite a lot of hit because of COVID, we have seen a lot of promoters offer for sale also coming in there, right?
Nazara is an offer for sale, yeah.
Yeah, it is promoter offer for sale which is coming in a couple of IPOs, which is there, which is very difficult to digest, right? It's not a growth capital you are trying to raise, you're trying to exit the market, which is there. Easy Trip Planners was also the same offer for sale by the promoters. They just wanted to get listed and get a valuation, and they're getting good subscription there. But I don't know how. There was a time maybe 10 years back when we used to look at the promoters are selling. We used to look at them saying that I'm ready to pay a growth capital to you, but why should I give you an exit at a high valuation?
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be the blemish. It doesn't even be a red flag right now for sure. I think even in Lakshmi Organics, Yellowstone, which is a co-promoter, is doing an offer for sale for 300 crores, but they're also raising.
I can understand a fresh issue and a part, but issues where you have offer for sale only is basically I'm financing exit of a promoter or an investor.
The technology, new age. So you got to probably take that into account. But yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to see how some of these tech companies most certainly do. But yeah, maybe we don't. Maybe the market is still not quite ready to value these companies the way Silicon Valley does. So I think time will tell how well they do. I must say though, Sajeet, before you wrap this up, I must say that forget the gray market. We don't want to get into that conversation. But for Nazara, the private placement with the 1 year lock-in, which is the official thing, right? When people are giving it, that is happening currently at the last I heard at about noon on Friday was 1,450 to 1,500 rupees with a 1 year lock-in. The IPO is priced at 1,100. So already, forget the gray market because that can be illegal and illegal, whatever. But this is an official trade wherein shares come into your demat account. That is happening at 1,500. So as much as people optically might want to think that, hey, this has happened, the ratios have come down, etc., and the management gave reasons for why that has happened, be that as it may. But as much as we want to doubt that, there is a market right now willing to give a 400 rupees
premium. But at the same time, I think the promoters are putting some money on the table as well, right? If you look at that way.
Yeah, sure. But I'm just saying that the interesting bit is that we may believe that some of these stocks or IPOs are very richly valued, but they are finding subscription.
No, they're finding subscription, they're finding money, and we're trying to figure out what is the valuation metric for such companies.
But yeah, by any chance, yeah. So that's the long and short. Sajid, any other company that we missed? I mean, I kind of...
No, I think there's a Suryodaya Small Finance Bank, which is a normal one. It's a niche, one of the licensee of Small Finance Bank. That would be also interesting one to see, because we'll see a lot of small finance banks now coming to the market because they will need to raise capital as well. So that's going to happen. But yeah, 6 IPOs coming out from today to next Friday, and I think hopefully that would be the only bunch which we see, and not beyond that.
That's well watched, but great. Sajid, lovely talking. It's been a while, but we should do this more often. But lovely talking to you. And yours. Thanks for tuning in. This is just two editors going bonkers over the number of IPOs coming and then just, speaking our hearts out. Thanks so much for tuning into this.